Well, The Boys and Homelander just went full Trump, and you never go full Trump. I am only reviewing the first 3 episodes. I haven't seen anything else. This is The Boys Season 4, Episode 1 through 3, and let's just get the cat out of the bag. Donald Trump is a huge reference point for this season. The show is laying it on thick, and there's no question now. This is, I think, some of the frustration that I'm going to be talking about in general with the discourse, and also tying it into my review of the first 3 episodes of The Boys thus far, and art in the age of Donald Trump. The Boys exist in this really weird place in pop cultural zeitgeist, where it is very now politically leaning one way. And it's very obvious. And to be honest, I really like that it's made this decision and the choices that it's embraced. However, that is going to bring out the worst of discourse and discussion and a lot of bad faith arguments that I'm seeing. So I'm going to lay it as straight as I can in my conversation right now about The Boys Season 4 and the show's apparent lack of nuance, which again, I think is pretty rightfully earned in the storytelling of The Boys thus far. But let's just kind of give a brief recap to kind of reset ourselves and kind of remember where we are with the show right now. To end season 3, Homelander kills a guy in the middle of the street and his supporters cheer. A very, very direct reference to Donald Trump saying that he could kill a guy in New York and get away with it and no one would care. That is obviously what that is supposed to be parodying. And now we are in this world where Homelander is who Homelander is. And I think people are now starting to hit on this idea of lack of nuances, you will say. And the fact that this show is now laying it on thick, and specifically the Trump metaphor, is very overtly obvious now. There's a Homelander that we see in season 1, and then there's a Homelander that we see in season 4. And this facade has dropped. And I think that's the key to understanding this discussion of nuance, because I think that is the fundamental point right here. The nuance has dropped because Homelander as a character from the story being told doesn't have as much nuance, and it's purposeful. So when there's these reviews or people talking, or the discourse is really talking about just how obvious this show has become, that's because Homelander as a person could only really become more of a cliche and more overtly parodying, I guess, if you will say, because with Homelander, and specifically that choice to end season 3 where he is, he has nothing left to lose anymore. He is essentially outed for the monster that he is. And as he says in his own words,
I'd prefer to be loved. I would. But if you take that away from me, well, being feared is A1 okie doke by me.
And that's kind of where we are with Homelander now. Like, there isn't this facade, this mask that he's wearing. He is who he is, and the people that hate him are completely against him, and Homelander is completely against them. So there's none of this mask. There's none of that behind him anymore, where he's trying to keep up these public appearances. He's trying to please this larger crowd. He is talking solely to his supporters and the people that he believes that he can grift on and abuse and be just terrible with, that will continue to support him. And in essence, in doing that, and obviously in shadowing what Trump is doing in real life, that makes someone less nuanced as a character by design. So when we talk about this idea of, well, Homelander has become less nuanced as the seasons go on, my answer is yes, because sometimes people get less nuance as they go along. Once they become who they are, and this is what they continue to do, and they start outing themselves as the person they really are, there's not these layers or complexities to them. They are just terrible people, and we know everything we need to kind of know about him. And that's where we are with Homelander right now. So this decision to essentially lose all political nuance that maybe the first season or 2 had, I think is actually introductory with where the TV show was always naturally going to go, specifically with Homelander's arc. This season is working at its best, again, as every season always does, when it follows Homelander. When Anthony Starr is on screen, this show is electric. He is so frighteningly good as Homelander, and he becomes more and more dangerous and more unhinged. I think what makes Anthony Starr such a special actor is watching his eyes and the rage start filling up, and you start feeling that danger from him as you realize that he's starting to essentially do the math himself and realize the situations that he's gotten himself in. And he is just such a stupid character that the only way he gets himself out of situations is death. He kills, and that's who he is as a person in this show, which makes him so deadly because of the powers that he holds. It's such a frighteningly great performance out of Anthony Starr, and he is like the sun for the boys. Everything needs to revolve around him, and when it doesn't, that's where some of the issues with the shows start appearing. And to follow or to recap where some of the other characters are, and again, spoilers, Butcher is dying in this season, and he's trying to make amends with Ryan, the son of Homelander, who's also... It kind of feels more like a device, and I still don't fully understand what Starlight is going through in this season. I want to see more out of her character because I think she's such a rich character to explore. Hughie's exploring essentially his dad having this stroke/heart attack, and his father's now in a coma, and then all of a sudden Hughie's mom reappears. And so he's going through his own trauma. I should mention that the Starlight character is also going from trauma from her past. And again, this is where the show, when it becomes a little bit more of these two characters focusing on their trauma, that's where I become a little less invested on this show. I want to see where this goes because specifically as we start dealing with the Starlight supporters, I think there is a lot of fun that can be had with this season with them. But I do kind of feel the show spinning its wheels week to week with these first 3 episodes. And that's where I kind of want to get a sense of direction with it. I kind of think Starlight and Hughie are a little directionless right now, especially in comparison to Homelander and Butcher, which maybe has been the entire runtime of the show. Butcher and Homelander are the center gravity of this show. There's 3 new characters really introduced in this show. Sister Sage, who is this black woman who's described as the smartest person in the world. This is always a challenge for a show or movie or anything to bring in someone who is supposed to be almost like so incredibly intelligent, because now you have to make sure your writing's as smart as possible. And I think the issue that's going on with Sister Sage is this character hasn't really shown me how smart she is. She has some ideas and she has some little bit of like moments where you see her pulling the strings, kind of Machiavellian style in that. But it kind of feels like everything she's done has either gotten figured out or just not really working. So it does feel like they're building to something and that she's actually maneuvering more in the background than we know. So this is kind of a work in progress with this character. I kind of need to see where this character, Sister Sage, goes and what the ultimate plot with this character is going to be. At this moment, I find her an interesting wrinkle up against Homelander. As a character herself, I'm struggling to kind of see where this character goes. My favorite new addition is Firecracker, played by Valorie Curry. I just think this character, as the grifter superhero that she is just a really good representation of, again, the orbit of stupidity surrounding Homelander and the people that he's choosing to align with. And something very specific in this is when Homelander comes face to face with Firecracker and they meet for the first time, you can see that he views her with discontent. He views her as a lesser person. And again, Homelander views everyone as a lesser person. Homelander, wants nothing to do with this character and thinks she is really just an idiot. The final character that's introduced is Joe Kessler, Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this show. he's kind of serving what the role that Butcher did in the first few seasons, where he's kind of telling Butcher, like, you got to do whatever you got to do to get to Homelander, kill him at whatever the cost. And if we turn this kid Ryan on our side, that's in our favor, and we got to make him our killer. That's really what this character of Joe Kessler is doing. I've heard this Jeffrey Dean Morgan character becomes fairly integral as this season goes along. Right now, it's just kind of been set up, and we see this dynamic of this new character, Joe Kessler, essentially taking the role of Butcher. But with all that said, I really have been enjoying the first few episodes of The Boys thus far. I'm one of the few. I thought The Boys season 3 was excellent. I think it's my favorite season of the show thus far. And I like the choices that they're making to lean more into the real world. I like that this show is becoming more inherently political, or I should say more overtly, obviously political. I like those decisions, and you can call me whatever you want for saying that, but that is the reality. I find it far more interesting when an artist is trying to make parody of something that is almost so essentially too far beyond able to parody because it's getting so crazy and wild. So when a show is trying to engage and essentially tell a story that heightens the insanity and news lines that we're seeing and directly parody it, it's this disconnecting feeling where it's just like, oh, wow, this is so overtly something, or like this is so overtly heightened. And then when you start thinking about it, you're like, oh no, that's the direct parallel. Or there's even specific moments where I watch it where I'm like, oh, that's like a direct quote said by the former president of the United States. Like that is almost the stupidity that the show is facing as having to operate due to the subject matter that they are parodying. Some people are going to be driven crazy by this. Some people are not going to want to engage with this. And let me just say this, anyone who's viewing The Boys as a message of liberals are good, conservatives are bad, they themselves are also lacking the nuance to engage with this show, in my opinion. This show does not have the best beliefs of traditional liberal politics, and specifically the people in power. You can definitely see this show making fun of. And again, a show and a story is able to poke fun, attack, parody one side, even if it's more in line with that way of thinking, while still acknowledging that they believe something else is far more askew and worse and cruel and all of these words. Like, it is possible to go after essentially both sides. And I think the term both sidism isn't well utilized in a show like The Boys, because I don't think it's playing on the fence. What I will say is when the show is really clicking for me, you can feel it as an exploration of what it is to be in America today. And again, that's going to drive some people insane. Some people are going to hate it for said reason, where they just don't want to engage in art like that. They don't really want, they want to be essentially not have to think about the current world situation. And if something doesn't completely align with their politics or their beliefs, the reaction is to dismiss it entirely. And I think that's the completely wrong way to engage with art. I find it more interesting when art is challenging and when art is taking stances and trying to achieve something. And even if I don't fully agree with everything being said, because I don't always agree with the way that the show parodies, I think there are some things that I find a little bit juvenile about the way that they portray conservatives in this movie, or in this show, I should say. And I think there are aspects of the way that they portrayed liberals in this show that I either find too harsh or too kind in other ways, or some of the political beliefs of this show, or how this show incorporates corporations and all that. Like, there's so much in this show that I can't say like 100% that this show fully aligns with my politics or my personal beliefs at all time. But yet that's why I find it rewarding and fun to engage with and think about this show. And really just week to week to week, this is one of the few shows that I've actually spent time watching week to week. Since The Boys season 3's come out, which was like, 2 years ago? I legitimately think I've watched maybe 5 seasons of TV in between that 2 years. I just don't really watch TV, but The Boys is certainly one that I enjoy watching week to week. And I kind of can't wait to keep going and diving into this and seeing where this show goes. And we'll see. I really want this season to be good. I definitely feel this show spinning its wheels. And also the one thing that makes me really happy going into season 4 was knowing that they're like, season 5, that's where this story ends. That's where we're wrapping it up. Because I think this show does need a natural endpoint. So the idea that we're getting semi closer to that does excite me. So that's what I'm really getting into and liking. So thank you all for watching this review of The Boys. I may disable my YouTube comments. We'll kind of see how this goes. But if you guys stuck around, if you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe for more videos. And maybe if this is popular, maybe I'll do a few more TV show season recaps or follow along to The Boys, maybe every week or so. So thank you all for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.